Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start the agenda. Welcome to the Audit Committee for Monday, June 9th. Please stand if you're able for the acknowledgement of traditional lands. We acknowledge we're hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Thank you so much. Are there any declarations of possible conflict having seen the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, may I please have a mover to approve the agenda? I'm sorry, I can't see anyone online. Trustee McLean and someone online?
Robin Pilkey.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pilkey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Approval of the meeting minutes of March 17th that you can find on page 1 of your agenda. May I have a mover, please?
Trustee Arts.
Thank you, Trustee Art. Seconded by Trustee McLean. Any comments? Seeing, hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Those are carried. Thank you very much. Any delegations? No delegations. Thank you. External auditors update. Associate Director Zucker, I'll go to you, please.
Thank you. And we'd like to welcome Deloitte partner Lillian Chung to present. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the committee for having us here today to present to you our audit plan for the year. It is included in your package for information, so we will keep our remarks fairly brief. Our annual audit plan outlines for the committee the areas of audit focus, or what we consider to be audit risk areas for the year. Thank you. It also outlines the audit materiality, which is very important as a concept to help us determine the extent of audit testing as well as the audit scoping that is performed on an annual basis. Our audit plan at this point does outline what our intention is for the year based on our understanding of TDSB and your current environment right now, and is based on our initial planning. Our audit cycle with the school board commences pretty much every year in the summer, where we commence with our interim audit visit, where we perform the majority of our planning process and perform internal controls testing. We then lead into the fall, where we do perform school visits as well as our main year-end audit process. So at this point, it is the start of our process for the year. So happy to present our audit plan to you. In terms of the overall areas of audit risks that we included in our audit plan this year, I would say by and large, they are fairly consistent with previous years as we've outlined in the plan. We did outline in the current year that there is an additional area of audit risk relating to a change in an auditing standard, not an accounting standard. And that is for audit standards CAS 600, which is relating to group audit standards. So as we presented to the committee in prior years, the audit of the TDSB is considered to be a group audit. And what that means is that the TDSB as an organization does include certain other entities or investment in other entities or consolidation of other entities within it. And so as a result of that, it does require us to be a little bit more deliberate in terms of our audit testing. We do have specific audit standards that specifically address audits of entities in those scenarios. So that is outlined in the audit plan for this year and is a change in the current year. The standards do require us to be more rigorous than in prior years as it relates to group audit and scoping decisions that are made, and also the risk assessment process being more specific to the entities within the TDSB group. So that is something that we did want to highlight to the committee in particular. Otherwise, in terms of the overall audit risks that we've identified this year, they're very consistent with the previous years. As you would have seen also in our audit plan, we did identify the areas where we intend to use specialists, and this includes specialists that are within our audit team. As with prior years, we do intend to use IT specialists to supplement our main audit team, which is comprised of myself, Edson, as well as our field staff, which do come on site to the TDSB during the audit process. We also do intend to use the work of TDSB's actuary as well as part of the valuation of employee benefit plans. That is very consistent with previous years and is not a change. Other than that, our audit plan, as I've said before, is fairly consistent with prior years, but happy to take any questions that you may have for us at this point. There are a number of appendices in the document, but primarily they're for your information purposes. I did note that as part of the agenda item, it does reference also accounting standards updates in Appendix 4 of the audit plan, which is in agenda page 23. We did include a few areas that are accounting changes. However, none of these apply to the current fiscal year and is more for the information of the committee at this time. We will work with this board as these accounting standards do come in place. And I would say the biggest piece of the standards that's actually changing is the overall conceptual framework, which is a public sector accounting standards change, which will shift and change the presentation of the financial statements themselves. So that really will involve, I think, much more involvement with the ministry as well in terms of what they require from a financial reporting perspective. So I'll pause. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Do any of the committee members have questions?
Trustee Luskin, I have my hand up. I don't know if you can see that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pilkey, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Chang. Could you remind us again of what materiality was for 2024?
Materiality for 2024, I'm just going to ask my trustee senior manager to pull it up, but it should be around 30 million.
30 million. And you don't anticipate, at least at this moment, it's unlikely it's going to change significantly.
No, I think there'll be plus or minus a little bit, but not a significant change.
Okay, so that was a good question. That was my first question. You did answer part of my question about Appendix 4. If this is effective for the next fiscal year, which is what I'm reading, are there you'll have to restate 2025?
Yes, there
will
will be.
A
There will be.
restatement?
However, the biggest thing to keep in mind actually is the changes are primarily presentation only.
Okay.
So it's not expected that there will be numerical changes as a result of the change in format.
Okay. And my last question was about on page, what is it in our agenda? It's on page 26. It's the second page on your engagement letter, I guess, about the fees. The fees for the asset retirement obligation, can you just remind us what that's for? Why that's not built into the regular audit fee anymore?
The original base audit fee, which was quoted, I think 7 years ago, did not include any procedures relating to asset retirement obligations. So ever since the inclusion of that standard, obviously it involves additional procedures on an annual basis.
Okay. So that's why I don't, all right, that makes sense. Because obviously when we did it the last time,
yes,
that would not have been in effect. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That helps me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pilkey. Are there any other questions? I don't see anyone online and no one in the room. A motion then please to receive. Thank you, Trustee McLean. Seconder, please. Can someone just come off mute and second?
I'm off mute. It's Ms. Pilkey. I'll do it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pilkey. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Then that carries. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your presentation and all your work on our behalf. Next up on the agenda is the Compliance Training Summary Overview and Metrics, Associate Director.
Thank you. I will ask Executive Officer Ellis to speak to this, please, through the chair.
Good evening, and through the chair. Our goal is to educate employees on laws and regulations they must comply with as part of their job responsibilities. We want to ensure that staff have a clear understanding of their expectations as it relates to compliance. And this evening, we have before you the annual overview of our compliance training program completion rates, which have in general improved over the last year. I'd like to now turn it over to Rita Simmons, Manager, Leadership Training and Professional Learning, for a brief overview.
Excuse me for 1 minute. Are we showing the presentation or is it just an oral conversation?
I can share the presentation.
Thank you very much. I think it would be helpful.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Thank you, Rita.
No problem. Just want to make sure I am showing the right screen. There we go. Okay. Can
Perfect.
everyone
Thank
see
you
that?
very much.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Walk you through this presentation. Thank you, Mark. As Mark stated, our compliance training program outlines our legislative and ministry requirements for compliance training for the Toronto District School Board. And as part of our due diligence measures, our compliance training program focuses on providing employees with the information that they need to do their job effectively. It mitigates the risk of any legal liability to the board and provides guidance towards our legislative regulatory expectations. And of course, it promotes and supports a workplace culture of accountability and well-being. One of the things that we'd like to highlight to you this afternoon in terms of our completion rates, which have increased year over year. And so we're quite pleased with the numbers that we're going to be presenting to you this afternoon. In terms of our completion rates, they speak to our successful completion of staff who have demonstrated their understanding of the compliance training expectations by passing knowledge verifications or assessments. This also addresses, when you see the numbers, this addresses employees who are on leave. Staff members who are temporarily on a leave are not required to complete their compliance training until they return to work. The numbers also take into consideration new hires who are currently in progress. And so they have not yet completed all of their training. And it also factors in retirements, employees who retired during the reporting period and are no longer required to complete the training. So as you're looking at the numbers, we just wanted to highlight those are some of the factors that make up our completion rates. For our permanent staff, this year we wanted to present to you what we presented last year in 23-24 and in comparison to our 24-25 numbers for the various courses that staff have to complete. So you can see that outlined on page 70 in your package. You'll see for the AODA what the numbers are looking like for 24-25 in green, our asbestos awareness, dealing with abuse and neglect, health and safety awareness at work, and human rights. And here are the remaining courses that staff have to take: our human rights course, PR 699, municipal freedom, supporting children with prevalent medical conditions, understanding of Bill 13, the Accepting Schools Act, workplace violence, and then our workplace hazardous material content. These are the staff numbers for our casual temporary staff. As said earlier, this is an expectation of all employees in the board. So here are the numbers for our casual temporary staff. And very pleased with these numbers because these are, as you know, our occasional teachers and staff who are on our lists who come in to fill in for staff absences. So they are also working very diligently to complete their compliance training. I will also highlight this year we captured student data for our summer student hires. As you know, the board hires summer students. And so the numbers that we are highlighting for you are the completion rate for our summer students, which was at 100%. And these are our young people who are hired by TDSB during the summer months. As we look to continue our accountability and monitoring of this program, this year the completion deadline was January 17th. And here are a few things that we're doing to continue staying on top of our responsibility in terms of ensuring that staff have completed their compliance training. This year, we will be presenting a draft procedure that will be coming forward hopefully in the fall. To help us sort of shape and frame the expectations around compliance training for the organization. We continue to have ongoing validation of our employee roster for accuracy, and this is particularly important for our casual temporary support staff and occasional teachers, ensuring that inactive staff are identified and removed from training rosters and lists so that we have the proper metrics to present to you. We have very clear expectations for employees who return to work. Staff who return to work are required to complete their compliance training within 10 days of returning to work, and follow-up occurs for those individuals who are returning from a leave. This year, we distributed a survey to staff to get their feedback and to help us sort of make changes or any updates that might be required to the program. I know in the report it's showing 1745, but in fact, the number is over 2,000 staff who've responded as of today. Actually, today we looked at those numbers. So that's serving as a key accountability measure to ensure continuous improvement and transparency. And as I said, to give us some ideas of ways that we might be able to enhance the program to make it more effective for staff going forward. And as in with previous years, we have ongoing education and awareness campaigns that we put in place to increase staff understanding of our system expectation. And we go through annually a review of all the courses to make sure that the course material and content is reflective of any current or up-to-date laws and regulations. And that is everything for our presentation this evening.
Thank you very much. Please stay on the line. We have a question from Trustee Arts. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what kinds of accommodations are put in place to help people complete training? So I know that the compliance training that I have to take, I don't ask for an accommodation, but it comes in a single format that is a mix of, videos and reading. But everybody has, different ways that they learn. So I was just wondering what kinds of accommodations are in place for to support staff completing this training if they have other needs. The numbers, congratulations, the numbers are improving and they're much better than they were a couple of years ago when we started looking at this. So it's great to see the improvements, but I always reflect back to my dad and says, 90% is great, but where's the other 10%?
Okay.
Yeah, what kinds of follow-ups are being done to capture that other 10%? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Okay, I will answer. Or Mark, do you want to respond? Sorry.
No, I think please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. In terms of accommodations, so all of the courses are AODA compliant. And so we ensure there's, a video component, there's audio. We do offer a print version if staff need it. So staff can put in a request and then we're able to accommodate what their learning requirements might be and help them complete the course efficiently and effectively. So we don't get a lot of those requests. So, but when we do, we do have ways to support staff to ensure that they're able to complete the material.
Thank you very much. Trustee Arts, did you have a follow-up?
Sorry, was the how are we addressing the 10? Like, what are the ways that that 10% of people who aren't in compliance?
Yeah.
What are examples of the follow-ups we're doing to get them to complete?
Yeah, so one of the, I think the earlier slides I shared, we talked about why there is that 10% gap. So I wanted to address that first. So employees who are on leave do make up a factor, obviously. So staff who are not here make up a percentage of staff. You also have to take into account new hires. So those are individuals who are in progress, so they've just recently been hired, and they have 10 working days to complete the course. So those numbers are reflected in there too. So when you see the difference, that's what it is. So staff on leave, new hires, and also retirements. So if somebody retired before the deadline, it's still showing that they started the course, but they haven't completed the course because they have since retired. So those are some of the factors why we're not seeing 100%. And in terms of how we're ensuring that staff complete the training, we work very closely with our managers, our principals, our management staff, and they do the follow-up with staff. And when we have the procedure in place, it does say, it is going to outline very clearly what our expectations are in terms of follow-up and what the, for lack of a better word, is consequences for non-completion.
Okay, so these are snapshot numbers, and so the compliance, then can I assume that the compliance amongst the permanent staff
Mhm.
is actually higher than, like, 90% is great, but the like the in-year numbers, like the whole year encompassing numbers for permanent staff is probably higher.
Yeah, it probably would be a little higher, and they fluctuate. So when I first pulled the stats together early in May, they were lower than what I'm presenting to you today. I mean, if I pulled numbers today, you'd probably see a slight increase. So we do see a fluctuation in numbers for those factors that I identified earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pilkey, please go ahead.
You're on mute, Robin.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to staff. I noticed that the dealing with abuse and neglect of students, the numbers are lower than other different trainings that are taken, and that's sort of consistent, I think, over many years. Have staff been looking to see if there's something specific with that training that is resulting in lower numbers? And I'm not saying that it's not fantastic that you're at 90 or 95. I think the other one, 90, and though 81% doesn't seem great for that particular course. But I think this is probably a pattern that has occurred over a number of years. And I'm wondering if there's anything specific to that course that results in lower numbers. Why some of them would be at 95% or 97%, and yet that one is pretty consistently not. I think if you looked at a number of years more than just these last 2, it would not be very high, or it would be lower than other ones, if I recall correctly.
Thanks for the question. Please, Ms. Simmons.
Thank you. This is one of our courses that is an annual course. And some of the other courses have a renewal cycle of every 3 years, 5 years, or you have to take it one time. And so I think this course is the one that we have to, send a lot of reminders out to staff to ensure that they complete, because it is one of the few courses that is required to be completed on an annual basis. The other piece as well is that we'll be looking at updating this course for the new year. There's a new policy that's coming out, a revised policy for this work. And so we'll be updating the courses. So if there's any issue with the course itself, it will be rectified for next year.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. I didn't realize that one is annual versus some of the other ones that are kind of one time only, it looks like.
Yeah, this is one of the few annual courses that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the information.
Thank you very much. Ms. Choi, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff. Just kind of like based on what I can see, the compliance has improved quite a lot, as mentioned earlier. But I think there is a higher improvement amongst permanent employees versus the casual, temporary, and occasional staff. So just to understand the scope a little bit more, can you tell me what the count of permanent versus casual staff is?
The number of employees, you mean?
Correct, yeah.
Correct.
Sorry, I don't have that information for you this evening, but I can get that information and share it with you.
Is it half, kind of rough ratio?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, in terms of our casual, temporary. And I mean, I think the piece that we have to take into consider for our casual, temporary, and occasional staff is the numbers do fluctuate. We have staff who are on the list. And sometimes they're not picking up work to work at the Toronto District School Board. So they're not obviously completing their compliance training. So their numbers will look a little different. And I think that group would fluctuate the most. Our casual, temporary staff would fluctuate the most.
So a follow-up question to that is, do these employees, these casual staff employees, do they have to complete training before they're actually working?
So any new, yes, so we have staff who are returning staff who they have to have completed their training, and then anyone who's new to the roster, yes, they have to complete their training. Their deadline is usually earlier than what we have for permanent staff.
So we have an internal check to make sure they've completed training before they actually go into the classroom.
That's what we're trying to do, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Did you want to add, Mr. Ellis? Did you want to?
Thank you. And through the chair, I would estimate our permanent to casual staff ratio to be around 70-30%, if that helps answer the question.
70 permanent.
70 permanent, 30 casual.
And in total, how many staff?
43,000. 45,000. I'm being corrected, sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for staff on this report? Not seeing any. May I please have a motion to receive? Thank you, Trustee McLean. Someone online to second, please.
Trustee Arts.
Thank you. Was that Trustee Arts? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then thank you very much. Moving on. We're now at the internal audit reports, the internal audit update of June 2025. Associate Director.
Thank you. And through the chair, I am going to ask Comptroller Harris to speak to this report, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to introduce item 8.1, which is the July internal audit report, which begins on page 77 of the package. During 24-25, the internal audit team selected 25 schools for detailed internal audit procedures. Consistent with the prior year, these audits test a variety of operational, financial, and compliance controls. And the sample selection ensured that we had at least one school from each of the family of schools, and there was a focus on any schools that had relatively new principals. We will be bringing back a full report on the audit work and our findings at the September 2025 Audit Committee. At this time, 14 of the audits are completely finished. An additional 7 have wrapped up, but we're just waiting for final comments from individual schools. And there are 4 audits which are in the late stages of completion. And obviously, the next few weeks are very important to wrapping up this work before the school staff go on summer break. In addition to the school audits, in our audit plan, we also identified that we'll be looking at corporate vendor change controls. And there's 2 sort of views to this work. One is making sure that our existing controls are operating as intended. And the second part would be to see if there were any improvements to these controls which could be identified. This work was identified in response to fraudulent requests that TDSB received last summer to update banking information on vendor master records. Initial planning work for this work has begun already, and it is our intent to complete this work over the summer once the school audits have wrapped up. And again, we will report back our findings in September to the committee. This concludes the updates that I had for this quarter, and I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Comptroller Harris? Not seeing or hearing any. May I please have a mover to receive? Thank you, Trustee McLean. A seconder online, please.
Wong?
Trustee Arts. Oh,
Thank you, Trustee Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Comptroller Harris. The next report is the Regional Internal Audit Team Status Update as of June 2025, Associate Director. And you can find this on the agenda, page 81.
Thank you. And through the chair, and for 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4, I will turn them to Regional Internal Audit Manager Hat to deliver the reports.
Thank you. I believe Paul is online.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hat.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the report on page 83 of the agenda package is my usual update on the status of RIAD activities. As you can see, we have issued 2 reports since the last meeting that I will be presenting. We also have a report that's in draft relating to incident reporting. So we've done some additional work on this one, including redrafting and sending a survey to all elementary and secondary schools to get some more fulsome feedback. This took a bit of a process as the survey needed review before the distribution, and it remained open for a month. So we did receive the results in mid-May and are incorporating these results into our draft report. Although we had planned to issue both incident reporting and the racism, bias, and hate portal review reports at the same time, because they do relate to different incident types, we didn't want to hold up the RBH portal review any further because it was ready for issuance. Now, as we wind down on these engagements, we are looking to start the other ones. Student accommodation will be one of the next engagements that we start internally. And I'm also working with management to determine the timing of the 2 outsourced engagements. So we acknowledge there are a number of priorities going on at TDSB right now, but we will be ready to start at any point because I have budgeted to outsource these ones due to the technical nature of the engagements. So they will not be bound by any staffing constraints by our team. And finally, we are looking to ramp up our follow-up activities in the fall as we expect to finally move forward to fill a vacancy on our team, given some additional funding for regional internal audit that the ministry recently announced. Thank you for your time, and I'll pause here for questions.
Thank you very much. Shall we take this first one, and then will you be going through the next 2?
That's correct,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this first overall summary? Seeing or hearing none, a motion to receive. Trustee McLean has left the room, folks, so I need people online.
Trustee Arts.
Thank you very much, Trustee Art, seconded by Naveen. Thank you so much. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So now we'll move into the more detailed on the analysis of available courses and extracurricular activities.
Okay, thanks again. Through you, Madam Chair. Starting on page 87 is our report on the analysis of available courses and extracurricular activities at secondary schools. So through discussion with management, it was determined that this would be the area of focus to address the student achievement risk. So this advisory or consulting engagement report is a bit different from our typical reports. As noted in the objective and scope section, our objective was to analyze the range of courses by subject, as well as extracurricular activities provided by TDSB secondary schools. The intended purpose was to provide insights on these. There are no findings or recommendations.
Sorry, just 1 second. Can trustees make sure they're muted if they're not speaking? Thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting. Please go ahead.
No problem. So the purpose of the report was to provide insights on these areas. So there are no findings and recommendations, and the information provided is to be used at management's discretion. So the analysis looked at how equitable access is to courses and extracurricular activities, illustrating the impact of various factors, particularly the size of the school. Now, through the survey that we sent, we also looked at potential opportunities to mitigate the risk. Our focus was on schools with traditional programming, and we also included congregated sites for some of the analysis. Our results were shared by school size, so we divided the schools into 5 size categories based on enrollment, as shown at the top of page 91. So the specific analysis that we undertook included determining the average number of unique credit courses provided for each subject, such as math, science, or technology. And we also did an analysis on unique non-credit courses offered at schools, which includes congregated sites. All course analysis was based on the Ministry of Education's 5-character course codes. At management's request, we also looked at the number of schools that had students in co-op, credit recovery, and had dual credit programs based on school size. So the scope section highlights how these were identified. We also did some analysis around sporting activities provided by the TDSSAA, and this included the range and average number of sports teams for each school size, as well as a gender-based analysis and access to high-cost sports, the latter 2 being at management's request since we were already working on the data. So for the purposes of this analysis, we excluded the virtual secondary school because of its unique circumstances. We didn't want to skew the results for that particular school size. Finally, we looked at other extracurricular activities, which was done through a survey completed by all schools in scope, including the congregated sites, to understand the types of activities available, what drives decisions made on courses and extracurriculars offered, as well as opportunities for improvement. So the methodology section, starting on page 90, outlines in detail how we prepared the data and conducted the analysis, as well as the process that we took for the survey. It was a significant process, but as I said, we have outlined the steps that we took, so I don't want to go into it in detail unless there are any specific questions. And we took the information as provided by management with the noted steps taken to enable the analysis. So we didn't verify the completeness or accuracy of the data. Going to the meat of the report, the results are presented starting on page 92. The results of the unique credit course analysis are in the table at the top of page 93. So as you can see, the overall range of unique courses available increases as the size of school increases, which isn't a surprise given that a larger student body would generally support more courses. Now, there may be differences in averages for particular subjects, such as some schools might have a focus on the arts. As for the non-credit courses further down the page, the smaller schools and congregated sites do have more. This is as expected, as these courses have alternative expectations and are often targeted to students in special education programs. Size 1 schools have some locations that focus on students with higher needs and individual education plans. Moving on to page 94, most schools do have dual credit, co-op, and credit recovery, regardless of the school size, with a small dip for the size 1 category. For sports activities offered through the TDSSAA, the average offering for each school size, again, increases as the size of school increases. We've also included the low and high number of activities for each size category. Now, for the gender-based activities, males have slightly more activities available for each of the school sizes. Page 95 shows that students at the larger schools have access to more of the highest cost sports. Lastly, we have the results of the survey sent, and I am happy to report that we received a response for every single survey sent, which was a great accomplishment, and I'm very appreciative of the principals and vice principals who did take the time to fill out the survey. Appendix A, starting on page 98, includes the questions sent, as well as a summary of the results. And for the open-ended questions, we provided the key themes and common responses. So one of the questions asked for the types of extracurricular activities offered at the school, and we included a number of pre-populated categories and asked them to select each item that applied. So we did an analysis of the responses based on school size, and the results of this are on page 96. Overall, students had access to many different types of extracurricular activities, but note that we only looked at the broad categories rather than total opportunities. As a result, school sizes 2 to 5 had similar results, with the smallest enrollment category, which included the smallest category 1 schools and congregated sites, they had fewer different types of activities. Now, within the survey, question 18 on page 100 asked about challenges in implementing or sustaining extracurriculars, and the responses showed that many schools had challenges getting staff to volunteer and or had a lack of financial resources. So suggestions for improvement offered at the bottom of page 102 noted the need for financial resources and staff release time. However, we do acknowledge that with the current financial situation, providing more isn't always possible at this time, and staff participation is depending on staff willingness and ability to volunteer. So moving back to page 96, the bottom of the page includes some suggested next steps for management, including determining what other analysis might be useful, using the insights provided for decision-making purposes or advocacy, as well as assessing progress towards achieving multi-year strategic plan, strategic directions. So any action taken, as I said at the beginning, is at management's discretion. Moving on to the conclusion on page 97, I've concluded that a school size is a key factor in the number of unique credit courses and sports activities available to students. And as a result, students don't always necessarily have an equitable access to these depending on what size of school they attend. Now, there may be other options for students to fulfill personal learning objectives, but it isn't, it's depending on their personal circumstances. School size plays less of a role in the non-credit courses available, co-op programs, dual credits, and credit recovery, as well as types of extracurricular activities available. We also note that although smaller schools don't always have the same span of available programming, there may be some benefits to smaller schools that are noted. Now, as previously mentioned, funding and available volunteers can impact what is offered at a given school within a size category. But again, it's not always possible. So overall, the information provided does follow expectations, but this analysis backs up the expectations more formally with supporting information. Before I hand it back to the chair for questions, I did want to thank everyone involved with this engagement, both at the board level for pulling all the information that we requested, as well as for support provided throughout the process, and as well as I mentioned to the schools who responded to the survey. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present my findings, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for this report. It really supports our ending the moratorium and moving forward. And I think staff will find this really helpful as we go forward. Are there any specific questions for Ms. Hatt on this report? Thank you. Ms. Choi, please go ahead.
Ms. Chow.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff. So I wasn't really sure, like, in your opinion, is there a risk then to access?
So through the chair, the risk would be that depending, if a student's going to a smaller school, they wouldn't necessarily, there may be some courses that they wouldn't be able to take that might meet their personal learning objectives. And so again, there are alternatives to taking things like off-site, to taking things, say, through summer school or, through e-learning. But in terms of, there are challenges associated with that. So, I mean, ideally to have everything on the same site would be best for the student. And, we don't know necessarily in some cases, say for a sports activity, I mean, some students are able to go, and if they're not able to access something at their own school, they'd be able to go and join an event out in the community, but some students wouldn't necessarily have those resources. So the risk would be that some students aren't necessarily able to take everything that they've chosen for their academic path within their school.
Okay, I guess put it another way, is this something we should be concerned about?
So through the chair, really, this helps, with a lot of the small schools. I think the concern is that, TDSB has a moratorium on closing schools. And, unfortunately, this could land in the situation where there are some smaller schools that remain open, where students find themselves in this situation.
Thank you.
Can I just add, just for context, Ms. Chow, first of all, it's not the TDSB that has the moratorium, it's the province that has the moratorium, number one. And secondly, we have done a secondary school review. We did that a number of years ago where there were recommendations about an ideal school size, but sadly, that work is on hold until the moratorium is lifted. So staff are very well aware of the more appropriate school size to offer the breadth and depth of programming for students. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of our secondary school report.
Okay, thank you. What is that ideal school size?
I believe it was 1,000, give or take,
Okay, thank
for
you.
secondary schools. There'll always be the need for some smaller alternative schools, absolutely, full stop. And we're not going to take larger schools and shrink that population. But once the moratorium is lifted, plans in the long-term program and accommodation strategy can be implemented, and it will provide better opportunities for students across the system.
Great. Can I have one more follow-up question?
Of course.
I'm curious, like, has participation in these opportunities been considered in the report? It's one thing to have access and have the opportunity, but mirroring it with participation would be very interesting.
Does someone want to respond to that comment? I don't think it was asked particularly, but about participation combined with the opportunity. Any staff want to take that on? Thank you, Ms. Panagiotopoulos.
Thank you for the question. We did not ask schools to report on the number of students who participated in each activity. Some activities, I'm going to say, have smaller numbers, or for example, and somebody in the room can help me, how many people play on a baseball team and how many people would be extras would be a number, where other activities, for example, a robotics club or a chess club or a video club, could have an endless number of students involved. So just depending on the type of activity, the number of students that could be involved may be influenced by the actual, for example, a specific sport. While other sports, for example, a cross-country team in a school, again, would be open to anybody, often is open to anybody that's interested, because everybody can run on the track or in the neighborhood, but for some specific sports, that would be limited. I hope that answers some of your question.
It does. I just want to make sure that we're not just looking at access. We want to make sure that we're providing the right access, right? Access, where people actually participate. There's a high participation rate. I think based on the survey, that was one of the questions whether it's the right. I think the first question on the survey indicates that we're not providing. Overall, the opportunities are appropriate and there's interest, but there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of providing the right opportunities. I just want to, flag it and put it out there for something for us to consider when we're looking at this.
I appreciate that comment, but please remember, any club extracurricular activity is completely volunteer on the part of staff. We can't obligate them to perform these duties outside of the regular classroom. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, who's not in part of the regular school. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing and hearing none.
No, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Pilkey. Sorry, I missed you.
I wasn't quick enough.
Go ahead.
Through you to Ms. Hatt. So I thought this was interesting and not that surprising. But I wondered, in the smaller schools, did you look at what the ability to offer enough courses that students can graduate? Because obviously in a smaller school, the course offerings must be restricted to things that students need to graduate, and how that filtered into your review, or if it did at all.
Thanks for the question. So through the chair, we didn't specifically look to see whether the student or the schools had all the courses that were needed to meet graduation requirements. If that's something that you wanted us to look into further, we can definitely do that. We have the information available.
I see Ms. Panagiotopoulos has her hand.
Oh,
please
good.
go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So in the small schools, there are enough compulsory courses being offered for students to be able to graduate. I think the key message, which again, I'm sure you're not surprised at, is that choice is limited. So right. I may be really interested in a tech course, but that may not be offered. I might be interested in a world issues course that may not be offered, but a world religions course is. So there may be fewer choices with the optional credits, but the compulsories are offered. So there is an opportunity for everyone to graduate. It just may be a choice piece. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Anything further?
No.
No? Okay. Anyone else I've missed? No? Okay. Motion, please, then, to receive this report. Anyone online? Thank you. Is that you, Trustee Arts?
Yes, Trustee Arts.
Thank you very much. Seconded by
Joey Chow.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? That's carried. The next report, very interesting, on the Racism, Bias, and Hate Portal review. Please go ahead, Ms. Hatt.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My next report on page 105 is on our review of the Racism, Bias, and Hate Portal, or the RBH portal. Based on planning discussions with management, we determined that the complaints management and incident handling training risks would be addressed through an advisory engagement focusing on the RBH portal. We targeted our review of the portal to look at the areas noted in the objective, including whether the system is adequately designed, whether relevant incidents are captured consistently and accurately, and whether the information captured by the system is being used effectively. So our procedures included receiving demonstrations of the portal, reviews of supporting documentation like training materials and reports produced, and we also surveyed a sample of 10 principals with 6 responding. The survey and results are included in Appendix A on page 114. Now, while there was a low response rate, we feel that the other work that we did, including the demonstration of the system and the review of training materials, helped us satisfy our objective with the surveys providing additional user feedback. Now, as noted, our engagement didn't cover system controls, which would be part of the greater cybersecurity audit plan. Also, we focused on how incidents are reported in the system and not the handling of the incidents themselves. In the conclusion section on the bottom of page 108, we noted that overall, the system was adequately designed based on our review of the system and based on our walkthrough of the system and supplemented by the survey questions. However, through the surveys, there were some opportunities noted to streamline the reporting process. So as a result, we raised finding number 3 on page 113, noting that the feedback identified that there was some repetition in the information requested by the portal, adding time to the reporting process. Now, as this is an opportunity for improvement rather than an issue with the system, we raised it as low priority. But the risk is that it can add time to the process and may deter fulsome reporting. So to address this, we recommended a review of the portal in light of the feedback received to see how it could be streamlined for the various types of incidents without, of course, losing any required information, which is absolutely something that we would not want to do. Management's response noted that further research would take place to identify issues and make recommendations to address them. So looking back to the conclusion section, for the objective of consistent and accurate capture of incidents, we had noted a couple of areas of improvement for that one as well. Finding number 1 on page 110 noted that there were a number of training options and guidance documents available for the RBH portal. However, training wasn't mandatory, and the survey respondents had noted that they didn't take training. However, since that time, a new comprehensive role-based courses were rolled out to principals, vice principals, and superintendents, and those are mandatory. Now, although action was taken after our work, we did want to highlight the positive steps that were taken to address the identified issue. Now, because we were able to identify and verify that this issue was addressed, we haven't included a risk or recommendation and corresponding management action plan. The other area of improvement that we noted with respect to the consistent and accurate capture of incidents is finding number 2 on page 111. We suggested that in addition to monitoring at the school level and the annual report to the board, that there would be some benefit to having reporting and trend analysis at the learning center level to see if there are any inconsistencies in the incidents recorded. We also noted that it would be beneficial to touch base with users about whether there could be any improvements made to support the consistency of reporting. We do acknowledge that this would take additional resources and may not be feasible right now, but the management response noted that potential opportunities for reporting and analysis at the learning center level would be explored, although these are not the intended function of the portal. In addition, management will explore the possibility of more broadly sharing success stories about addressing racism, bias, and hate. We rated this particular finding as low because there is fulsome reporting at the board level and superintendents are provided with notifications of incidents entered. So our recommendation would be to provide another level of monitoring and oversight. Moving back to the conclusion section, for the third objective, which was the effective use of information captured, we didn't note any significant issues. The data from the system is used to assess the current progress and determine future action. The annual report communicates overall data to key stakeholders. So this concludes my presentation of the Racism, Bias, and Hate Portal review. Again, I'd like to thank management for working with us to complete this review, as well as to those who did respond to the survey and took time to provide us with feedback. I am happy to take any questions or comments from committee members. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Can I pass the chair, Trustee McLean? Thank you very much. In terms of the data as just data versus what you mentioned in terms of the engagement and the results and the implementation from the data, did you have any comments on how that should be reported? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, just in terms of, sorry,
Well,
could you clarify?
Yes, the intent of the portal itself was not just to document the data, but to actually document what was done in terms of educating from the data. And I just wondered if you had any comments on how that should be reported. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So through you, Madam Chair, we looked at our review focused more on the annual reporting process and what was kind of done at a high level in terms of the reporting and in terms of the analysis that was done as part of the annual report and actions taken as a result of that. So we did focus more on that higher level.
Right. So it was basically just on the tracking of the incidents, not the outcomes of the incidents. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we did focus more on that part of it rather than the outcomes of the individual incidents, that we were looking more at the system itself and the data collection.
Thank you. Those were my questions, Mr. Chair. I'll take back the chair. Are there any other comments? I don't see or hear any. May I please have a motion to receive this report? And thank you very much, Ms. Happ, for your work on helping us.
Thank you.
Motion, Trustee McLean, seconded. Thank you, Trustee Arts. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. The next 8.5 Associate Director is an oral update on the Auditor General report.
Thank you. And through the chair, we just wanted to provide committee members with an update with regards to the Auditor General report that was received in December. In March of this year, so 2025, we did get a template that we needed to complete from the Auditor General, just asking about the status of each of their recommendations and the expectation of when they would be complete, looking for a timeline. My understanding is that they were trying to determine when they would start their follow-up audits, and so that allowed us to provide them with when we would be implementing each of the areas. As you will recall, there were not a lot, but a few recommendations that really required additional funding in order to be implemented. And so those do not have an implementation date as we await funding and direction from the ministry. But for the others, we have provided, in some cases, there's been quite a bit of work that was even completed before the report came out. So there are a number of areas that are complete. And it is the intention of staff on a regular basis, probably annual, to fit into when we received the report the first time. So possibly the December meeting, where we will provide updates to the committee as to the status of each of the recommendations. So thank you, through the chair.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the staff work. Trustee McLean, please go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair. Does the Auditor General's, other than suggesting that the staff and the province try to work, excuse me, work together to try to address the issue of whether the TDSB has a structural deficit, is there an expectation of, other than one side saying there is and the other saying there isn't, of how that might get resolved and the work that's designed to come together to shine light on that and create a path forward for the TDSB and the ministry to work together towards?
Thank you, through the chair. So the recommendation is that we did work together, one, to determine if we have the structural deficit, and then two, to identify if there are any unique circumstances that play a role in our financial challenges. So the meetings are ongoing, and I do believe that there would be an expectation of the Auditor General, I guess, not just to, do we agree that we have a structural deficit or not, but to actually look at why TDSB has a structural deficit, and then we haven't got that far in the conversation yet, but I believe the expectation would be, if we do have unique circumstances that are identified and we both agree, that there would be some sort of expectation there. We did identify in the response sort of some of the areas that we believe are the reasons why we have a structural deficit. And the ministry also recognized in their response that we do some things that are outside of the delivery of services for kindergarten to grade 12 students. So I believe that the two of us coming together and having those discussions, although it's not said in there what will come of that, I believe that that's hopefully the intention, is for us to get to a point where we can deal with the issues and to not have a structural deficit. The Auditor General, I don't believe, will ever make recommendations as to additional funding or that we're not funded to the extent that we need to be. So I think that this is the closest that they would come to saying something like that. If the intention, or if it was found, for example, that the reason that we do have a structural deficit is because we have extraordinary circumstances which lead to areas where we're not funded completely. And I know that statutory benefits is one of the areas that we identified. So that would be an example. They would, of course, never direct the province to provide the funding, so that wouldn't be the outcome. But I believe that what they would report back on is, yes, the two parties have agreed that there's a structural deficit. Here are the reasons why, and that maybe help us just for or the public for advocacy later on, and possibly for conversations to happen about funding our unique circumstances.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Trustee McLean.
Thank you, and through the chair. But can it not be argued the two things can be correct at the same time, in that we can have a structural deficit challenge to the nature in which we're funded, and yet that the local priorities that the TDSB has, if we didn't have the structural deficit on one hand, the priorities that we spend some of our money, some of our budget on, wouldn't create a deficit at all?
Through the chair, yes, I think they can both be true, right? I think we have a structural deficit for a number of reasons, and those two things contribute to them. And yes, if we didn't have a structural deficit related to statutory benefits, then maybe we could afford to be able to do some of the priorities that we have. But again, the expectation of the ministry, and then I think the Auditor General doubled down, was that if we do these things that are out of our K-12, that the expectation would that we would do them on a cost recovery basis. So whether we look for additional funding from other organizations or other ministries, or we charge fees that would offset the costs, I believe that would be the intention. But I do think that there are multiple reasons why we do have a structural deficit, and to solve them, I think we're going to have both of the things addressed.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions arising out of the Auditor General update? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on then. There were two reports for information only, and yet they both have receipt motions to them, even though they're just for information. Associate Director.
Through the chair, just happy to answer any questions if any committee members have questions on either one.
Wonderful, because they're for information only. Do we still need the receipt mode?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either. So are there any questions on the two reports that are included for information? I'm looking on screen. I don't see any. So thank you. Those will just be for information. May I have a motion, please, to go into private? Thank you, Trustee McLean, seconded by Ms. Pilkey. Thank you. And just give us a minute to set up. Thank you so much.